Hi Stampers, this is Kim at Great Inspirations, and today I'll be talking about Z-fold cards. And as you can see, there are several types of Z-fold cards, and believe me, there are more than 4. But before we get into all of that, I want to welcome you to my channel. I thank you for joining me today. If you're new to my channel, I invite you to subscribe, and please don't forget to hit that notification button, and then you'll know the next time I upload a video. Also, in the description of this video, you will find a link to my blog, and that is where I have all the cutting dimensions, measurements, and list of supplies for the projects that I show in my videos. So I'll invite you to check that out. Now, all week on my blog, I've been talking about these 4 types of Z-fold cards. The basic Z-fold card, the double Z-fold card, the Z-fold panel card, and the Z-fold with the band card. Now some of you may be saying, I've not really heard of some of these Z-fold cards that you're talking about. That is most likely because I name card folds in a way that makes sense to me so I can remember how to put them together. So you may see similar cards or the same cards with a different name, but just know these are the names that I use. So first of all, let's get rid of these, and we'll start with the basic Z-fold card. And these are 2 of the basic Z-fold cards, the ones I've shown on my blog this week. This one, as you can see, is a landscape orientation, and this one is a portrait orientation. Or if you want to be like myself, the long version and the short version. I guess it's short this way. But these are very basic and very simple to make. So what you're going to need is some cardstock. And let's start with this card. And it's, as I said, the landscape version. Now I have my scoring board out, and I know you really can't see all of it on the video. But as you will notice, across the top there are measurements. It goes from 0 to 12 inches, and then along the side it does the same. And these little markers help you to guide you to where you want to put your stylus that comes with it. You put it right in the groove and just run it along the board. I have mine at 4 1/4 and 5 1/2 because those are the 2 score lines I use most in card making. And then as you can see, I have an extra one over here. But for this card, we want to make 2 score lines. And so we have the, as I said, 11 by 4 1/4 piece of cardstock, and we're going to start by scoring at 2 3/4 inches. So here's the 2, 1, 2, 3/4. Make a score line right there. And then we're going to score at 5 1/2. So I told you I have my marker, so right there is 5 1/2. Now it's just a matter of folding this cardstock. First it's a mountain fold. And always be sure to burnish your edges there. And then we'll do a valley fold. And there we have it. That is how you make the card base for a basic Z-fold card in the landscape orientation. And now we'll go to the portrait orientation. We have a piece of cardstock that measures 8 1/2 by 5 1/2. And we're going to score it. Get all my papers, they're flying around here. We're going to score it at 4 1/4 my marker, 4 1/4, and then 6 3/8. 6, 1, 2, 3/8. Fold this back. Fold that one. And there you have it. There's the card base for the basic Z-fold card in portrait orientation. Now I'm sure you noticed that all we're doing is taking a piece of cardstock like you would take to make a normal card. You know, that's 8 1/2 by 5 1/2. We folded it in half, just like you would to make a normal card base. And then on the front of the card, we simply folded that in half. And that's how we got this card base. So if you don't have a scoreboard, that's all you have to do. Fold your cardstock in half, and then fold the front flap in half. And it's the same for the other orientation, for the landscape orientation. Fold your cardstock. That's 11 by 4 1/4. Fold it in half. Fold the front flap in half. And there you go. It's just that easy. As I said, that is the basic Z-fold card. Okay, so we'll move on now to the double Z-fold. Here's one with little sharks on it. Here's a floral version. And the double Z-fold has basically 2 cards that are folded in the Z shape. And as you can see, this version sits up on its own. The portrait version really doesn't sit up on its own. I mean, it could, but it would be in the wrong orientation. The cardstock and the scoring, the cardstock measurements and scoring for both of these are exactly the same. You change the orientation by how you decorate it. For example, I could have made this a landscape orientation and then, you know, stamp the happy birthday this way. But I did it this way. You just don't, for a double Z fold, you just don't have to have any other special measurements for the orientation. So, let's get some cardstock and learn how to do a double Z fold. You'll need 2 pieces of cardstock. One measures 11 by 4 1/4. The other measures 9 inches by 3 1/4. So we will score the larger piece first, and we're going to score at 2 3/4 inches. 1, 2, 3/4, and then we're going to score at 5 1/2. Now you may notice that this is just exactly like the basic Z-fold that we did in landscape orientation. It's identical. This piece is similar, but a little different in the size. As I said, it's 9 inches by 3 1/4, and we're going to score at 3 and at 6. For this double Z fold, there are other dimensions you can use for this piece of cardstock, and you can make it a little bigger, a little wider, a little longer. I will have some other measurements on my blog, but once you become accustomed to making these cards, you'll be able to adjust this piece to fit your needs. But for right now, we're just going to go with the 3 1/4 by 9, scored at 3 and 6. And it's the same. We do a mountain fold and a valley fold. simply position this, the smaller card onto the larger card, wherever you want it. And what I do, once it's positioned, I flip this over, put my adhesive here, close the card, give it a press, flip it over, and this part of the card will be adhered. Then I open this, and I only want to put adhesive here, because if I put it too far in, it's going to adhere to the rest of the smaller card and it won't open properly. So I would just put adhesive here and close that down. And then there's your double Z fold. And like I said, it could be a portrait or landscape. So that's how to make that basic card to put, you know, all of your nice pretties on. Make it, decorate it all up. I would advise that you put your DSP on before adhering the smaller card onto the larger one. So, moving along, let's go with what I call the Z-fold panel card. And I call it that because the Z-fold part of the card is actually a panel that fits on to a quarter sheet of cardstock or a half of a card base. So that is 5.5 by 4 1/4. Now this is the portrait orientation. And then here's one with also a butterfly that is the landscape orientation. And then my little snail. This is from the stamp set Snailed It, which is new to the current mini catalog. So for this, we need a card base that is 5.5 by 4 1/4. And then we're going to need another piece of cardstock that is 9 3/4 by 4. So 9 3/4 by 4. But we don't need the scoring board right yet. What I need is my Stampin' Trimmer, and we'll see if I can do an okay job cutting this on top of my trimmer. Might not. So we're going to put the 4-inch side at 1 inch on the trimmer. And for the cutting blade, we're going to put it at 3 inches. And we're going to cut from 3 to 7.5 inches. And that is all we need to do with the trimmer. Put this right here because we're going to do some scoring. And we're going to score at 3 inches from the top just to this cut line. So put it in at 3, go right to the cut line. And now at 5 1/4, we're going to score all the way down. Then at 7 1/2, we're going to just score from this cut line down. So I'll put my stylus right here at 7 1/2 and just oh so gently go down until I get to the cut line, and then put a little pressure, and there we go. So we fold this, get it started, just like that. Well, there we go. That was giving me a little bit of an issue. Okay, that's better. So there's how that works. And then you put it on your card base and you will put your adhesive. We want to avoid this. You'll put your adhesive here and here. And then line it up on your card base. So that is the Z-Fold panel card. So it's a little snail and my butterflies. That's how you make that one. And now I have one more Z-Fold to share with you. And it is what I call the Z-Fold with band. And it is very similar to this one, except it's a full card base. And then you add the band. I'll show you what I mean. This is 4 1/4 by 11. And then we have a band that is 1 1/4 by 11. Now this band you can also make a little smaller, wider or narrower. At 1 1/4 inch, that I wouldn't go much smaller than 1 inch, but that's just me. So let's see how to score this so we can get this card. The first thing we're going to do is score at 2 3/4. And then we're going to score at 5 1/2. And then we're going to do the mountain fold and the valley fold. And oh, what do we have? It's our basic Z-Fold card in landscape orientation. Now we're going to score this piece. Like I said, it's 11 by 1 1/4. And we're going to score it at 5 1/2. And then we're going to score it down here at 8 1/4. Or if you want, you can score it at 2 3/4 and 5 1/2. It doesn't matter except for the folds. So this is going to be a mountain fold and this will be a valley fold. Now what we will do, you would put your designer series paper and whatever else you want to put on there and on this strip, and then we would adhere the strip right here, this longest part of the strip, where we've had the 5 1/2 inch score line right there, and then we would adhere the shorter part right there, and that's how that works. As I said, it's basically this, only with using a full card base instead of a half a card base. And also without the making this cut. So there you have it. That's what I call the Z-Fold with a band. This is the band. So here we have our basic Z-Fold cards, our double Z-Fold cards. I'm going to run out of space, aren't I? And our panel Z-Fold card and the Z-Fold card with a band. And as I said, there are complete instructions for each of these cards on my blog in the post for the week beginning February 15th, 2021. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and until next time, stamp happy.